Hey there, Santa Cruz coaches. Welcome to a quick kind of a preview slash introduction to our upcoming Biz Labs and our guest speaker, Jay Fiset. I want to tell you a little bit about Jay. Jay is a best-selling author, a student of human nature, an avid outdoorsman at five-star hotels. He speaks fluent smartass, can see and reflect your life mission in 5 minutes flat, loves having two sons so he can play with their toys. He still fantasizes about his wife after 25 years, loves ideas, but loves results even more. He can simultaneously laugh and cry for different reasons at the same time. He's never been starstruck, he says, but he did mention that if he had a chance to meet Martin Luther King, you would have heard him screaming like a teenage girl. Jay is dedicated to instigating a global movement of conscious creators and supporting people to organize their life and resources around their passions and gifts. He's the founder of JVology and Mastermind of Millions, and he's also a pal of mine. I just want to introduce my dear friend, Jay Fiset.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that introduction. And it's always good to know when somebody actually reads it, because I just detest regular bios and those sort of things. So I have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one, and you can always tell when somebody doesn't read it because they're like,
For sure.
So it's an honor to be here today, and I am really looking forward to talking about joint ventures, how coaches, authors, transformational leaders can integrate joint ventures into their business model. Because Lord knows I've been in that space for, goodness gracious, coming on 38 years. And I know how beautiful it can be, and I also know how damn challenging it can be.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. And I got to say that the work that I've done with you through friends, having you speak on my stages, being on your stages, but also being a participant in the JVology structure that you've created, it's been monumental in helping me to grow my own business too.
Yeah, and it really is. And I think perhaps one of the things that we should start with, just as a foundational conversation, and please know if there's anything that strikes you, it's like, this community needs to know X, you just jump in and ask, and I will do my very best to direct and all of those pieces. But I think that the starting point should probably be, let's just start with really like, what is a joint venture? Because I think that there's an incredible amount of misinformation around joint ventures, particularly in the days of digital marketing. Add to that the days of digital marketing plus COVID and everybody at home hiding behind their computer trying to figure out how to make $5. So I want to be very clear that actually, let me address the elephant in the room, so to speak. It's like, does it mean I have to mail my list? And the answer to that question is maybe. It depends on how you structure the process. So I want everyone here to understand that this is not just about email list swaps. This is not just about jumping on somebody's launch of a program or a course or a workshop or some version thereof. This is a strategic process that has gone on since the beginning of time about building effective relationships with people that serve a similar tribe, a similar client, all those sorts of things. Please hear this, to solve the problems of our clients better. So when people always say, it's like, what is a joint venture? I'll just give you my very brief definition, then we'll dive into this so that we're just talking about the same thing. Number one, I use the word joint venture as this huge umbrella that represents really sort of three categories. And I'm going to say category number one is this thing just called affiliate marketing, which is, I am willing to bet that every single one of you coaches has a piece of software that you use, that you've signed up for, and it's like, hey, if you like this, you could sign up and share the link. And if somebody buys it, we'll send you enough money to buy a Starbucks. Now, that's just affiliate marketing. It's just transactional. There's a link, somebody buys it, you make a blog post, you send it in your email, you recommend it to a friend, and something happens. And it usually isn't going to move the needle in your business, but it's a nice little surprise when it shows up in your PayPal account or however that happens. So, and by the way, I'm not really a big fan of that. I mean, it can help and it can move us towards where we're headed, but it's generally speaking not game changing in terms of our business model. Now, the part that is the middle ground, what we call a joint venture. That's traditionally when there is a project that two or more people come together, or two or more organizations come together to share their wisdom, their network, their resources, their experiences in collaboration, please hear this, to serve their clients better. And then based upon what the inputs were, we would share those resources afterwards. So for example, I'm willing to bet that a bunch of you as coaches have written books, have ebooks, have those sorts of things. And it's as simple as if you were doing a book launch, There's the pre-planning. It's like, hey, I've got a book coming out on this particular date and time. We would love to make that book available to as many people as possible. And if you would be willing to share that with our tribe, then we would reward you. So there'd be the pre, that's the planning. Then there's the execution, where it's like everybody shares the book, and there's usually some sort of incentive for the joint venture partners to do that. And then if the book had some sort of a upsell or a transaction involved, that would be split in some way, shape, or form. And in a joint venture, it's like if you loved that and it was fantastic and it really served your client's needs, you might say, hey, let's do that again. As Michael and I have done a whole bunch of times. It's like, my tribe loves Michael's work and how he delivers. His tribe seems to put up with me reasonably well. And so we continue to do work together. But if it didn't work the way we wanted to, we just say, hey, that wasn't it. We carry on. There's no big legalities. There's no nothing. It's just clean, simple, and easy. And then the third piece, which I'm really a huge fan of, and something I want all of you as coaches to think about, is what we call strategic partnerships. And this is where, in some way, shape, or form, we end up embedding our content, embedding our process in the actual client journey of one of our joint venture partners. So a good example of that would be Thinkific, which is a Canadian company, hosts digital courses, programs, those sorts of things. We have our content embedded in their intake process for their premium programs, because they know lots of people finish a program but can never get eyeballs on it to actually see it so they could buy it and actually contribute their value into the world. So they say, why don't you go talk to Jay at JVology, who helps you get the perfectly qualified leads for free for your course, workshop, or program. So that's a strategic partnership where we consistently get clients day in, day out from that process, because we solve the problem that particular JV partner creates, which is, great, I've got a program. Now, how do I sell it? We help sell it. So when I say joint ventures, I really want each and every one of you, when you come to the event that I'll be speaking at, I want you to come to it with an open mind and a curiosity about, how could I create a series of joint ventures that would serve and support, please hear this, my clients, my partners, and me all together, that solves two things. Because when we do it well, here's what happens. We have a steady stream of perfectly qualified free leads. And I'll say that again, just because it's like people are like,
Yeah.
what if you truly had a steady stream of perfectly qualified free leads at the front end of your business? I'll tell you what if. Number one, your process would be easier. Number two, you would have a whole hell of a lot more fun. Number three, you would make a hell of a lot more money. You would sleep better at night, and you would create more value in the world. Now, if you really do this process well, you'll also end up with a recurring passive income stream on the back end from when you help your clients solve their next problem, that you have helped co-create by rolling out what you do. So that's sort of the big picture. And one of the things I wanted to just share real quick is this, because the question becomes really, so like, what's a joint venture worth? And this is a dear friend of mine, Matthew McGregor. At the time when this slide was done, he was 21. He's now almost ancient. He's 22 now. And he is one of the only 21/22-year-old kids I have ever met in my entire life that has a tax problem, because he utilizes joint ventures in the structure of his business. And, he sent me this note, completely not a requested testimony or any of those sorts of things, but he attended our JVology Live, which is basically the 3-day experiential version of all the stuff I'm going to teach you when I'm with you. And he had made $28,000 in 30 days after JVology Live from that event. So when I say to you perfectly qualified leads, I really do mean perfectly qualified leads. If you understand what we call our upstream and downstream model, which again, I'm going to teach at the event, you will find that the people who show up through the process of joint ventures both want and need your product, service, or experience, and they know it. So as long as you can answer their question, show up in a meaningful, powerful, and purposeful manner, frankly, they're going to do it. Full stop. They're going to do it. Now, I want to just share one other little slide here. Mary Frances. Now, here's a good example. So Mary Frances is a brilliant woman, sexuality coach, registered nurse, certified in a ton of different modalities in terms of healing, but she primarily serves, I think she phrases that, women of a certain age. and it's about women of a certain age really stepping back into their life, claiming their juiciness, all those sorts of things. And she ran a coaching practice No, she still does, just to be clear. But she ran a coaching practice for decades that was good, but didn't provide her the freedom that she wanted and needed. So she's always had to pick up nursing hours. She always had to be on call and kind of think of it like a school teacher, substitute teacher, right? It's like I don't really have a full-time gig, but I'm there a fair chunk because I get called. And her experience in coming into the JVology world and coming into understanding joint ventures was that she discovered that, hey, instead of just looking for the one person that has this particular problem or issue, she got really busy building relationships. And she started doing this: large scale events that fed both her coaching practice and her very intimate retreats that she would do primarily in Mexico, but in other parts of the world. And the reason I share this picture is that she and I ran into each other on an airplane back when there were those days where we could get an airplane. And she sent these pictures to me and said this: every single person in these pictures at this live event, because she'd never done a live event in terms of this kind of scale, every single person in that room was there through a joint venture relationship. And all she did was take the core concepts of her coaching process, put it into a structure where it had a little bit of scale. And this event filled 2 retreats and her coaching practice full time, so that she wasn't doing much in the hospital. So when we say to you, this idea of joint ventures can truly radically alter your life or alter your world, I seriously mean that. I'm going to do one more brief example. And gang, I want to be clear about this. Lots of times when people share stories, it's like you've got to have, remember the infomercial crawl? It's like, results may vary. This is an exceptional experience, and you're generally speaking, the stuff that I'm sharing is stuff that lots of people have had that experience in our community. Now, that said, this one's pretty exceptional. And I guess I should probably show both of them. Yeah, I'll just do this one for the purposes of time. Michael, do you know how many people in the community are published authors? Like, is that a pretty significant piece in this community?
I'm not real sure. I would guess maybe 10 to 20%.
10 to 20%. Okay. In my brain, I was guessing higher, but that, by the way, you should talk to my dear friend Michael about that. He will certainly help scale that. But here's another community member, Karen McGregor. And this was a post that she had sent that I was really, really proud of her. But she just wrote something called the Tao of Influence. A bunch of her distribution and reach in terms of the initial launch of her book was done through joint ventures, much of which done through our JVology community. And, she landed on the Wall Street Journal and was there several weeks. This was the very first time, but she showed up there, number 7 on the Wall Street Journal. And that was an example of getting great support from a community that was behind her. So anything you want to direct into it, because I just want people to think bigger. This isn't about sending a freaking email. This is about strategically designing a business model that feeds the exact right person at the right time to you. And then you saying, okay, now that we're done, what other support do you need in building a, let's call it a referral network, or what we would call a downstream process to take care of the client's needs better and to make more money. Would you add anything to that, brother?
No, I would just say that part of the reason that I'm excited that you agreed to come and present to our group is because of your upstream, downstream model of joint venturing, which is such a different approach than I have found anywhere. And I'm a member of different joint venture communities, and I just love that approach. And I also love one thing I will add that you didn't say, but it's something that I firmly believe in, and I love this about you, is that you always say, joint venturing is a game of I'll go first.
Yes.
And I totally respect that. And I know that you live by that standard. And I'm excited to share you with our community of Santa Cruz coaches here. So thank you, Jay.
Well, I truly appreciate that. And that is one of the things about this, just to be clear about this, is that when we build the upstream downstream model, and in a nutshell, I'll just say this about it, and that way we can, and then I'll teach it in great depth and detail, and you'll actually not just teach it, we will build it out with and for you when we are there. The upstream downstream model is a process of building long-term meaningful relationships, because the truth is, once we set up our system and our process for joint ventures, if you're going to go to the time, effort, energy to find somebody who is a perfect upstream partner, and by the way, we would deem an upstream partner as somebody who either causes the problem we solve, diagnoses the problem we solve, reveals the problem that we solve. So they do the heavy lifting for us and deliver somebody who's like, hey, what you got, I need. When we do that well, it is about a relationship. And when we are targeting and building relationships and contributing, that's a meaningful process that takes some time, but the rewards are just off the hook for it. So I think the last thing I would like to just give a high level conversation about is this idea called the joint venture success wheel. And there really are 5 pillars that are required to really succeed long-term at JVs. And I think that if we don't spend some time contextually framing this, then I think people sometimes go in either, it's funny because it happens both ways, either incredibly skeptical, like, how is this going to work? Am I going to have to send an email? Or they come in like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's like, woohoo, this is going to be the easiest thing that ever happened in the entire universe. And what I want you to understand is this, is that it is a business model that requires structure, requires a little bit of work, that has one of the highest rates of return and leverage of anything in the entire universe. But it is still work, and you have to understand it, and you must be strategic about it. All right, I'll share the screen one last time here. And just so you know, we will provide some support. I will provide some training, all these things. I just want you to start thinking about it. But we call this a wheel, although the way it's displaying right this very second, it looks more like an oblong. But here's the thing that I want you to understand, is that the center of the wheel of all joint ventures is community. This is the meaningful relationship. These are the people that you care about. They are the people that care about you. They're the people that are doing good work in the world. They're the people that you want to support first. The joint venture is a game of I'll go first. How do I contribute to the community is the question that we all should be asking. Now, the beautiful part about this is I'm blessed to come to you guys and to speak to a community. So you already have a foundation of that around you. The question I would have for you is one community enough? And you heard Michael say, it's like, I'm a member of the JVology community. I'm a member of other joint venture communities. And by the way, me too. I'm a member of 3 or 4 mastermind groups. I'm a member of a variety of joint venture communities. And we recommend that for each of you to consciously curate who is in that community, the role that you have in those communities, and what it actually does. Now, imagine that you were changing a tire. I'm a Saskatchewan farm kid, so I'm pretty familiar with that. Some of you might not be, but here's the little thing. These little white dots that you see here, just imagine that those are the lug nuts. And the reason being, there's a particular strategy to this. Generally speaking, we need to get some sort of a tech foundation done. And what that means is a way to keep track of people who are interested in us, a way to send information in and out, a way to track our JV partners and what they're doing and how we are going to reward them and all of those pieces. I'll talk more about that. You don't need to get lost in it. By the way, I have a sister and brother-in-law who own a orchard, food manufacturing plant, retail stores, and they do farmers markets and those sorts of things. And guess what their tech foundation consists of? A handshake and a card that goes in every single one of their little boxes that drives people to their JV partners who are also at the same shows, and vice versa. And when they show up, they just show the card. We know where it came from. They do a quick little scan. Ta-da. Doesn't need to be complex, but there does need to be a system. Now, from Tech Foundation, and by the way, this is a wheel, which means that we are always updating these things. We go through community. You'll notice that we always go through community to get to the top of list building. This, by the way, when you're putting a tire back on your car, you always go crossways. You never go in circles in a rotation point, because it actually isn't going to get the tire on there properly, or the wheel on there properly. So lists building, and it says list S building because email is just one small part, and we don't want to, number one, just rely on that, particularly with the diminishing email open rates these days. We'll talk a lot about what it means to curate, create, and nurture a list of people that are interested in you, interested in what you do, and interested in what your partners do. So think of it this way. That's email, that's SMS, that's Facebook Messenger, that's good old mail, for goodness sakes. And there's a multitude of others we'll talk more about. Then, from list building, we go through community over to offers that convert. And I'll be frank with you, when I teach this on the 6th, I'm going to talk to you an awful lot about offers that convert, because people confuse offers that convert with, yes, I have stuff to sell. That's not the same. And when we really get offers that convert well, that are consistent, that are predictable. And that, by the way, could be your one-on-one sample session. That could be a little mini workshop, exactly as Mary Frances did. That could be an online sales page. There's a multitude of ways. There's no right or wrong to it. You just need one that works consistently for you, your offer, and your ideal clients. So when this gets working really well, then we go through the community to build and scale our partners. These are the people that are thrilled to share what you have with their clients because they know you solve a problem that the clients have, and they and you, by the way, are all in the process of shifting from being a one-off service provider, I solve problem X, to becoming a trusted advisor to your clients. And that, my friends, is where the entire game changes, and we get to have a whole heck of a lot more fun and live our tagline, which is JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit, in that order always. And those are the highlights on top of the upstream downstream model that I hope help get your head and heart aligned to what we're going to do and how you could truly redesign your business model that would give you a deep sigh of relief, that would leverage the contribution that you make to the world, and could build the foundation of wealth and freedom that you deserve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jay, for sharing that. As always, I am excited to attend. I learn something new every time I come to one of your trainings or have you speak on my stages. So I will say, hey, Santa Cruz coach, sign up for the Biz Labs. It's coming up. There's going to be a link. We'll try to put a link on this particular page, but if not, there's one in the email that you received, and we will be sending you probably some more reminder emails in case you haven't signed up yet to join us for the upcoming Biz Labs featuring Jay Fiset and JVology. Thanks once again, Jay. It's amazing.
Thank you, Michael. I always appreciate the opportunity and working with you.